What's up, everybody? Back at it again. Another episode of the Corrupt Cash Cleaners podcast. Woo, what a goddamn week. All those earning reports, all those Trump reports. Biden's still alive. No one thought we'll be here at this point in 2020. And there's been a lot of news, a lot of cool things breaking down. Of course, the stock market has been breaking down. Apparently, everything's negative for the month of October, of course. Apparently, COVID fears are swelling. Stimulus fears are swelling. I wish my bank account was swelling. My wallet's looking anorexic. But we're going to change that this episode. So let's get into it. Microsoft. If you've been following that company, wow. One, many analysts believe they are the most sturdy dividend pick of all the growth tech stocks. I tend to agree. Microsoft has never really had a bad year since their debut in the 80s. They're just consistently good, but never making splash news plays like Apple per se. But they don't need that, and they've proven to never need that. They're moving in silence again, but I caught them. These motherfuckers have teamed up with Elon Musk at SpaceX to launch cloud computing for space customers. One, if you need cloud computing to go to space, I'm good. Is there like a checklist or something? Well, apparently this cloud computing is a highly sophisticated internet system based on a network of thousands of satellites. So I guess it's for Becky that wants to FaceTime from space. Oh my God! Look, I'm outside the Earth. Look at this. That takes a lot of bandwidth. This cloud computing is for every basic person that needs to FaceTime from space to prove that they're in space. You know, everyone's first thought as soon as they get to space will be like, how do I post that I'm in space? And Microsoft is like, hey, we'll build that platform for you shallow fucks. Bill Gates has been wearing the same goddamn sweater since 1989, and he owns half of this world. But you got a little money to go to space once, and the whole goddamn planet needs to see you balling. You gotta love it and hate it. But yeah, so Microsoft's teaming up with SpaceX, creating some highly sophisticated tech. And currently they're in the testing phase, which is actually quite interesting. And I love how all the news that breaks is always a little late. You know what I mean? They let you know after they're doing it. And that's how bosses move. So what this tells me is that you are pairing the hot rod Elon, the one CEO who can excite the world like no other, but his only flaw is that sometimes he's a little out of control, with the most stable company, arguably in the last 25 years of American history. So I think both of these are great investment plays, and I'll definitely pay attention to what they're doing in the future. Moving on. GM and that electric Hummer. Oh my God. One time for all my people who don't give a fuck about global warming, that loved the Hummer back in the day, when you seen LeBron rolling with it in high school, saying, I didn't make any money from basketball. I live in an apartment. Of course I have a Hummer. Remember those days when life was good, getting better, when you could lie to people's face and get away with it? Now CNN wants to fact check you 20 times in a row. Fox News is going to say you're fucking dating a terrorist. Let's take it back to the old school days, because GM is going retro but futuristic with this Hummer, and its starting price is $112,000. I think that's fantastic, and I don't think people realize how much hype is behind this. This is such a hype train like no other, and I'm dancing on my toes right now. Yeah, has the automotive industry been interesting over the past couple years? Not necessarily a long-term investment, more of a trade. Yeah. But times have changed. COVID's changed. Used car sales are up. Car sales in general are up. The thing with GM, their CEO gets on national television and defends constantly that every vehicle that GM produces is produced with profitable margins. That means they make more money than they spend, and that means cha-ching. And it's great. I believe in everything this company's doing, and that's why I would argue you should get in now before this Hummer comes out. Because this Hummer, when people see images of all these celebrities, all these just cool people in general who got money driving around the street with it, it's going to be Tesla Part 2. Tesla was a fad more than a technological innovation. Everyone knew electric cars to a degree were possible, but Elon made it cool. And nothing is cooler than a goddamn Hummer that also doesn't consume 30 gallons of gas per minute. Buy GM, buy the Corrupt Cash Cleaners podcast, and then I'm going to go buy that Hummer. Talking about making a comeback, Snapchat is finally looking good again. They're finally looking investable again. They had a great Q3. Snapchat had 249 million daily active users in quarter 3. They're at the most popular they have ever been, and apparently through their earnings report, they added 11 million daily active users in quarter 3. Apparently that's because kids are bored. They're all in school, but like not really. Can we all agree that this year for these kids does not count as any academic year? This is just nonsense at this point. Some are in Zoom, some are not in Zoom. I feel like they're learning practical skills now. Teachers are teaching them how to hand wash laundry, churn butter. Because at this point, that's what we need. The fuck you teaching them calculus for? There's no goddamn jobs. You don't need no goddamn calculus. Can he lay brick? Can you teach him how to lay brick through Zoom? Because that's what I want my taxpayer money going to. This year doesn't count. Before I get too off point, they have a massive influx of youthful users again. People are finding this cool. People are finding this as a new form of texting, a new form of FaceTime. It's kind of direct communication, but also socially cool. And they also produce content, games, things that will just keep them on the app. And let's be real, adults probably use it more too. It's the only way you're seeing people with all this quarantine rules. You Snapchat your friends, you Snapchat your family. And because of that, Snap's reaping the benefits. And I think now, because of the stay-at-home economy, everyone's getting slightly scared because it's coronavirus again. No one's downplaying the negative impacts it's had on the world. I'm just saying it's inciting fear. People are going to be less likely to go out again, but they're still going to want to see the people that they love. Snapchat's a medium for them to do that. That's why I don't see it going anywhere for the time being. It's spooky season. Go buy that ghost on the stock market. That ghost might be fake, but its money's real. So I thought this was just funny. So BTS, the Asian boy band group that is topping the charts around the world, their label actually apparently made a public debut of an IPO, and the IPO did well on its first day. I just think this is hilarious and a great time for fathers to buy in, because if you're going to have to pay for that music for your kids to listen to, these motherfuckers better pay me in return. So go buy that if you got an annoying kid with a boombox around the house, because chances are they're blasting BTS and they need to pay you for what you have to put up with. Disney has been making a lot of big news, from laying off all its employees to pushing back movies, but it looks like they're on an upswing. They are slowly realizing that they have to distance themselves from the movie theaters as long as this pandemic is enduring. Who knows when people will be back to movie theaters, if ever. People only go to the theaters to see Marvel or James Bond movies anyways. The release of Mulan on Disney Plus, I know a lot of people viewed it as a failure. I see differently. This was their first chance to test out the market. This is all new ground. This is new territory. You need to sacrifice some fish to the beast to see how to tame it. Did the Mulan debut not go swimmingly? Sure. Didn't get enough downloads. People didn't seem to be interested, especially because it's live action. But the important thing was the price point. They finally got analytical data on what is the market demand and how much they could charge for it. I believe they debuted it at $30 per movie, and they proved that that is too high. So expect the next Disney movies to be released on Disney Plus that were blockbuster films that now have to come out through at-home services. Expect it to be a little lower, but also expect to hear the downloads and the purchases go up as they slowly target that sweet point of the most they could charge for the most viewers possible. Let's be real. Disney got movies in the can. No one gives a damn about Mulan. They got Black Widow in the can. They got Captain Marvel in the can. They got Guardians of the Galaxy in the can. Those are the movies you can't fuck this up for. They're gonna throw out a Mulan every couple months until they make sure they know exactly what to do for their big hitters, them big steppers, big Marvel movies. Not this chump ass, a whole new world. No one gives a fuck about that. That was cool maybe, 20 years ago? If there's not lasers and CGI, you could keep that cassette tape, because I don't want it. The release of Mulan went bad, but their stock has been going up, rightfully so. Because of one, them releasing movies and testing out this home market. And two, they made a decision to divide the company into parts. And that's an argument that many large companies have been brought. Amazon, for example. There's a lot of discussion whether Amazon's parts are more valuable than the whole. And Disney can be put in that discussion. And because of that, they are dividing slowly the content creation side from everything else they do. Talking about their studios and all the movies and how they do that is slowly going to become its own entity. Obviously, it'll still be governed by Disney in some form. They're not selling that industry. They're just dividing it financially. That's the only real thing. They're saying we're reporting this separately than this in hopes for maybe tax benefits, probably. Maybe they're trying to write off the amusement parks. I don't know. But this also led to the stock surging, which I agree with also. I think Disney is adjusting for the future, and that's what all their steps and actions have been towards. And that's why I believe in them going forward, and that's why I'll buy them as well. So the Boeing 737 MAX has been declared safe to fly by the European aviation regulators, which is good news for the company. But this battle isn't over. Keep an eye on them going forward because they are trending in the right direction. We would be remiss to not talk about the hottest stock of this pandemic. Chances are you might be on it now listening to this podcast. And that stock is Zoom. That stock is up 680% year to date. I wish my bank account was up 680%. God damn, how do you even get to that number? 680? I don't know if being up 600% means you're really good now or you were just really bad in the past. Shit, they made it. And you gotta give them respect. And they're trying to grow from it. They're apparently creating new features. They're trying to sell virtual events, sell virtual tickets. As we know, that has been somewhat popular. And I say somewhat because only some of us don't have real friends and have to go to these virtual events. But they're making a more professional feature and platform to that service. They're making up to 1,000 seats available. It'll be a different display format than the traditional Zoom setting. Higher quality imagery, higher rendering speeds. I like the idea, but this seems like a Quibi to me. This seems like it sounds good for the time being. But when it comes out, how many people are going to want it? they'll look at it for 2 seconds and then realize it's not for them. But be on the lookout for them. Be on the lookout for that. Go follow your favorite artists, see if they're trying to do something like that. And let me know how you feel. Because user feedback would be the biggest determination whether this Zoom stock will rise more from the announcement of this news. All I know is Zoom fatigue is real. And I don't know many people that want to spend all day on a platform getting yelled at, then log back in at night to watch their favorite artist shake that thing. But I could be wrong. And people could be crazy. So, buy at your own risk. All right, let's get to this big dick news. GM. We talked about them Hummers earlier, but now they're investing $2 billion into their electric vehicles manufacturing. They're retooling their Tennessee plant to service electric vehicles, and they're building 3 other electric vehicle plants. Talk about putting your money where your mouth is. Winning ain't cheap, and neither is that Hummer. Best believe they gonna pull it out on top because of this decision. All right, this is some BDN, but I guess slightly more Caucasian BDN. Morgan Stanley buys Eaton Vance for $7 billion. Now, that sounds like the lamest acquisition of 2 companies ever. Hearing Morgan Stanley buys Eaton Vance, on the surface you think, white people out here buying motherfuckers again? But fear not, my multicultural community, because I can assure you most of the people at Eaton Vance are white, because this is a finance company and it sounds boring as shit. The reason this is BDN, no matter how lame, is because it is a change in strategy for Morgan Stanley. They're getting more into money management and less into necessarily investing in the stock market. One reason for that is because many rich people aren't in the stock market anymore. Large percent of the wealthy 1%ers cashed out and are sitting on funds. And Morgan Stanley is viewing this as an opportunity to still get returns on the money without having to throw it in the market. This is why this is a good play. It's a boring play. I never thought listening to a story about someone spending $7 billion could put me to sleep, but not everything about the game is glitz and glam. And Morgan Stanley is showing you that. And lastly, the biggest one of them all, we need to stop with this stereotype that Asians aren't packing, because AMD, with their CEO, who is an Asian female, rock on, sister, she just cut a deal to buy Xilinx, another company in China that produces chips and semiconductors, to help build the business of AMD and fight against all the top chip makers. She threw down $35 billion. Ugh. This Asian queen is out here packing heat, which apparently is not unusual in Thailand. But I digress. And what this tells me is they're in this to win this, and you gotta love it. Woo. All right, guys. I think we gotta end on that. I don't got anything more interesting than Asian women one-upping men. So, go buy, go save, go make that money. Peace, fam.